Hello, Internet! Welcome to an episode of That Random Podcast Show Reviews. A little spin-off of That Random Podcast Show where we look at certain movies of the nerd variety and let everybody else know what our opinions are. It is the Internet, after all, and everybody has an opinion of middling quality. I am your host, Tyler Chansey, and with me, as always, is the lovable foxy-woxy Michael Mosley.
For once, you're actually going to care what the fox says.
Yes. This weekend has been the premiere of the long-awaited return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man with Spider-Man Homecoming, starring Tom Holland and Michael Keaton. We have both just gone out of our respective screenings, give or take a few hours. We still have to sleep after all. And, Michael, immediate thoughts on the movie?
As much as I love the Sam Raimi movies, and it completely skipped out on the Amazing Spider-Man because it looked like crap, this was actually a really great Spider-Man movie. This is the Spider-Man movie we've wanted since Spider-Man 1, to be honest.
That is saying quite a bit, Michael, and I actually have a soft spot for the Sam Raimi movies as well. I saw the Amazing movies, and frankly, you probably get a better Spider-Man movie just watching TV static. They were pretty forgettable, but I thoroughly enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming as well. There are some issues I have with it, but we'll get to those later. But first, let's talk briefly about the plot of Spider-Man Homecoming. It's been a few months since the events of Captain America Civil War, where the Avengers have been split and the Sokovia Accords has been taken to place. And Spider-Man has returned to his little slice of the world in New York, desperately waiting to hear another call from Tony Stark to go on another mission with the Avengers, and basically being left to live his life like a normal teenager. And live he does. Going to high school, trying to get a date for the big homecoming dance, showing up, and of course balancing his responsibilities as Spider-Man. Except in addition to being a good old-fashioned Spider-Man that we all know and love, he is doing his best to stand out and try to convince Tony Stark that he is ready to be taken seriously as a superhero and as an Avenger in his own right. And as such, he starts overextending himself in certain spots and gets in way over his head, particularly in involving an elaborate criminal underground network that's been founded by Adrian Toomes, in this movie played by Michael Keaton, aka the Vulture, who, in this version of the character in the MCU, is not some elaborate heist bomber type guy, but he's actually more of a blue-collar, middle-class worker that basically got screwed over because originally he worked with a bunch of people to clean up after the Chitauri invasion in the Avengers, and basically got locked out of a good-paying job by a brand-new joint organization called Damage Control. Yes, Damage Control is in the MCU now. And as such, Adrian decides to basically start sticking it to the man by collecting bits and pieces of alien technology and other advanced hardware left behind but from the past Marvel movies, and with a small group of people, put them together into high-tech weaponry, including a very dangerous high-tech wingsuit, and have been performing very dangerous high-end robberies in the dark of night and selling the weapons to criminals. Spider-Man uncovers this and tries his best to stop them, while, of course, dealing with, once again, being told, you shouldn't be doing this, you're just a kid, sort of stuff. And that really is basically the movie. It's half high school drama comedy that wouldn't be out of place with some of John Hughes' older work. I mean, heck, they even reference some of John Hughes' stuff. I think there's like a brief scene where we get to see a bit of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And the other half is a classic underdog superhero story. And, wow, does it work.
I would definitely say that with this one movie, Marvel has done more world building and world creation than Sony had tried in Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 combined. They introduced multiple villains, multiple references to the comics, and like you said, to pop culture. And it all felt organic. It all felt like it fit. It wasn't just shoehorned in there just because, oh, we gotta try to set up a new Sony Spider-Verse. It actually felt like Marvel was giving Sony these building blocks. It was like, okay, here you go. We've established the world for you. Now you can introduce whoever. And I will probably talk about some of the characters that we saw in there, but at the same time, we kind of want to leave that as like spoiler free, because seeing them in the movie is actually kind of fun.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like some of them references are like blink and you'll miss it, and they're just quick one-off lines like, "Oh, that's blank," and "Oh, what are you calling yourself now? Blank." It was quick, a couple of seconds long, and that's all you needed. And we didn't really need that much setup. You know, this is probably why I hated the Amazing movies most of all, because the way they did villain setup was, it's all connected to Oscorp, and he built the suits, and they're just random people in suits. I'm like, I don't care. That's overly complicated.
Yeah, it was so blatant as just like, oh, we had to make the Sinister Six movie. All right, here's a hall filled with all these noticeable villain attire. Why is Rhino here?
Stay tuned. We're gonna make sequels. No, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Why is the Rhino here as a big mech? Because reasons. Like, oh, all right. Well, that's kind of dumb. But
it was very dumb. I wanted to see Paul Giamatti in a giant bodysuit. Gosh darn it!
To be honest, that was going to get me to watch Amazing Spider-Man 2, seeing Paul Giamatti as the Rhino, because he's a fan of the Rhino, and he wanted to play that character.
You missed nothing.
I've heard. I've heard.
But back to Homecoming. But yes, the way they set this stuff up here is that these guys, you immediately understand their motivation, you immediately understand how capable they are, and they don't need to beat you over the head with it. They introduced the characters first, and then they gave them the fantastic tech. And then you saw what they did with them.
And the one thing I like was that with one character that I saw that becomes pretty prominent actually throughout the movie, it was his jacket. I was like, man, that jacket looks familiar. And one of the high-tech weapons, he was just like, man, is that who I think it is? And then Michael Keaton makes fun of the guy. He's like, ever since you got this weapon, you've been calling yourself this and that. And I was like, oh my gosh, it is. And the way that they put it in there was so great. Because let's face it, as regular human beings, if we ever got tech that gave us like Iron Man or Captain America-like powers, we would give ourselves silly little superhero and supervillain names.
And when it comes to the villains they're introducing here, they're mostly Spider-Man C-listers. And if you're going to do a cinematic version of this, having it basically be a tougher and smarter than average criminal that got high-tech gadgetry is the way you would go about it. And they did that there. But since we are focusing a bit on the villains, I do have to make a specific note in terms of positives. Michael Keaton is fantastic as the villain in Spider-Man Homecoming. Like, Marvel movies have always been criticized for having very weak sauce villains. And to some extent they are correct, if only for one big reason. They keep dying. They're one-offs. They get thrown up, and they're usually held as some dark mirror to the hero, or some very quick shorthand of villainous intent, and then they are destroyed.
Unless you're Loki, then you get to be brought back in movies that doesn't have Thor's name in it, just because Thor's involved.
Oh my gosh! Unless you're Loki, or unless you're a major antagonist in a Netflix series, you're basically out of luck. But Spider-Man: Homecoming actually breaks this mold in many respects. Like, you immediately understand why Adrian Toomes does what he does in the movie. You understand his motivation. You understand what he does, and he is capable with it. He isn't out to destroy the world. He isn't out to destroy the Avengers. He isn't out to do whatever. He's just doing these heists to make money to support his family, because he thinks that the world has screwed him over enough. And they spend a good amount of time establishing that. They do.
It was great because at the beginning, pretty much at the beginning, it showed that he was an honest, hardworking man. But again, Tony Stark, being Tony Stark, inadvertently screws people over and kind of ruin their lives. And with Michael Keaton, I think why it worked so well with him is because he wasn't being cartoony. He wasn't being an overacting, cartoony, cheesy villain.
Oh no, he was not. There's a scene near the end of the movie, we're not going to give too much context, where basically Adrian figures something out about Peter, like he knows something is up, and they have what could have easily just been this regular, simple scene, and they turn it into the most intense scene in the movie, where he just stares him down and just says, "Don't mess with me, or I'll mess you up." And it's done so deliberately and so straight-faced, it is frightening.
Oh, and it really helped that Tom Holland, his acting, the way he bounced off of
everybody?
Bounced off of everybody, yeah, but for that scene, the way he was bouncing off Michael Keaton, and he genuinely looked scared. Like, as an audience, it was already tense. You were already scared. But when you see Peter, who throughout the whole movie, it's just a kid who Iron Man keeps telling him he's getting over his head. Just this one scene alone was like, man, I feel scared for this kid because.
And this is a kid that can bench press a car and swing at 65 miles an hour, and I'm scared for this kid.
yeah. It's like it was the simple things like that, where it's like, okay, Peter has this thing to where he won't kill villains or he won't like just harm them to the point. There's actually a joke in there with his suit about killing villains, and I really liked it.
We'll get back to that a bit later because I think that is a level of contention.
But like the movie has set up all this stuff that Peter can do, but it was this one scene you forget all about that immediately.
And he's just a kid.
Because Michael Keaton placed this role so well. He looked so intimidating. He sounded so intimidating. I was like, man, Peter, you know what? Just walk away. Just get out and walk away. Don't even bother with this guy. Like, seriously, he almost killed you a couple of times already. Like, you probably should just lay low and let Iron Man finish this. But man, Michael Keaton's delivery is what really made the Vulture. Because to me, I don't really like the Vulture in the comic universe, but this version was amazing.
The Vulture, on the whole, is a kind of forgettable villain you just kind of have around. Like, unless he's part of the Sinister Six, I really don't remember a whole lot about him. But like I said, this version of him was done really well. Having said all that, you did kind of hint at something else as well that I think some people will have some problems with, but I thoroughly enjoyed. First of all, you've hit the nail on the head. Tom Holland is fantastic casting. Like, we mentioned this before in his brief scenes in Captain America Civil War, he basically kind of stole the show with that. In Homecoming, he is great as a lead. Like, I've mentioned this before to several people. Like, back in the Sam Raimi movies, Tobey Maguire was a fantastic Peter Parker, kind of mumbly and unbelievable as Spider-Man. The Amazing movies, Andrew Garfield got the Spider-Man quips down right, but he was far too capable and cool looking to be a believable Peter Parker.
And that's the reason why I skipped the Amazing Spider-Man, because like I didn't want to see Twilight hair being Spider-Man. Because I was like, man, this guy is way too cool to be Spidey. Because like, yeah, Spider-Man, Peter becomes cooler when he gets into when he becomes Spider-Man, he gets into college and he starts doing all this stuff.
And he comes out of his shell, but this is...
but even then, he was still awkward at places. The Amazing Spider-Man 1 kind of had that awkwardness, but then from what I can tell, they threw it out with the second.
He had Emma Stone as a girlfriend. I don't think he's necessarily on hard times. But back to Tom Holland. He is great in this role. Like I said before, when it comes to him being Peter Parker and him just hanging out with his friends at school and getting into friend activities and kind of ignoring them because he's waiting for that big next crucial call from Tony Stark, I felt that. It reminded me, for better or for worse, my own high school days and stuff, and that is a very good trick to pull off, because we've seen we've seen scientists, we've seen adults, we've seen mystical gods of thunder in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, but what's it like for a kid in this world? And I like how they handle that. Like, just these little tiny scenes, like Peter, very quickly making like reserves of web fluid in case something goes down, or keeping like little hidden caches in case he needs to dash off out of the school to do something.
And before you go on, like, that's the one thing that I really liked about this movie, because I was one of the people who were like, man, having Iron Man make Spider-Man suit is kind of weird. Like, I didn't really like that, but it shows that Tom Holland's Peter was still making his own web fluids and was even upgrading them, not because he had the stuff in his house, but because he had to do it.
He was taking advantage of the science lab.
Yeah, so like that's really great. He made like big jars of that stuff. So I was like, okay, this is really cool. And sure he can make a recipe and like ask Tony to do it, but later on again with that suit, we see what Tony would do with it. But to see how Peter was so smart that he had to get creative and use the school's chemistry to make his web fluids, I really enjoyed that. And
they maintain that it still dissolves after 2 hours, so he can't just sell it as an adhesive, which harkens way back to the original comics. And that we being around the bush, let's talk about the suit. There actually is a few things that I know some fans could easily have problems with it, particularly that some people think that the suit's too high-tech. And to an extent, I understand that, because this is basically a high-tech suit designed by Tony Stark that Peter wears and uses as Spider-Man, and in some respects I understand where people are coming from when it comes to it, because it can feel as if at times it diminishes what Peter's capable of. As you said, he can make his own web fluid, but this whole suit has an onboard AI. It has multiple different cartridge configurations. There's a heater in it. There's a voice modulator in it. It's very over designed. It does lead to some funny gags where the suit malfunctions and he's trying to deal with it, and that's entertaining enough. But people think it easily diminishes what Peter Parker is capable of rather than the people Peter Parker knows. And part of me wants to say it was done for expedience sake, because I liked reading even up to the more recent Spider-Man comics. He had stuff like that. He had the spider spotlight in the wrists. He has the spider tracers. He always had those, and he's got the web fluids. And we see a version of that in this movie. But I get a feeling that they basically use the shorthand of Tony Stark made it in order to keep the pacing of the movie light and not bogged down exposition. Because once again, this is not an origin movie. This is just Peter coming back and saying he's in the MCU now. Let's see what he gets up to. And that expedience may have made some people angry, but I am once again not too mad about it, because it's still Peter Parker using those tools and using them cleverly. Even though it's pretty clear he could have easily made this stuff himself, but we don't need 25 minutes of a scene dedicated to him making it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I understand that, because like I said, I was one of those people who were iffy about Tony Stark making the suit, but the way they handled it in the story, in the movie, they handled it quite well, actually. Like, yeah, Tony overdesigned it, but we also found out about the baby monitor protocol, the training wheel protocol.
Yeah, all this little restrictions on the suit.
Yeah, and we see why it's designed that way. And when
let's some great jokes.
It really did, especially some visual gags that we see just how far Tony goes with his tech and all this other stuff, and why. And again, it cements why Tony does the thing that he does, why he has these protocols, that he trusts Peter, but at the same time he knows that Peter isn't ready. And when we in a certain time we see that, Tony's actually kind of right, because when the suit, which gets named Karen, by the way, when the suit actually starts interacting with Peter, some of the gags and the realization of just how young and inexperienced Peter really is,
oh my God,
really comes to light.
There was actually a great auditory gag I love, where he was trying to intimidate some criminal to get information from him, and the voice modulated him to this wannabe Batman voice, and he is so dopey with how he uses it. I couldn't stop laughing.
It was great. He keeps trying to find all these things. My favorite part was when he goes out to the bank robbery that we see in the trailers. And usually when it comes to the games, the movies, the comics, the TV shows, that we also see that Spider-Man just magically appears through the ceiling or whatever. In this one, it actually shows Peter taking his time sneaking into the ATM.
And trying to look cool with the pose, yeah. Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, and trying to make up a pose, wait a minute, shut up, put my hand here. Yeah, I'm gonna lean like this. And then come up with a quip. It was really great. I'm like, you know what? These are the small things that I really enjoy.
He's still young.
Spider-Man.
He's still young, but that also leads to some other issues I think some people can have with the movie as well. Is that it's not an origin movie, but some people think that there should have been more allusions to his motivation rather than him wanting to impress Tony Stark. People think that cheapens it. I don't think that's the case. I've mentioned this before. I think we have hit a certain level of exposure to Spider-Man that we have thoroughly, as a culture, internalized what makes him tick at his heart. We don't need to reiterate how important Uncle Ben or his parents or whoever was to him. It's very clear something major happened in his life and made him want to be a superhero, and that is the driving force of what he wants to do. Everything else after that can either revolve around it, or we can just keep moving. And I think it was actually a smart call that they kept moving with it, because it was actually one of the biggest bits of contention with certain characters with Peter in the comics, where people kept saying, "Oh, will you shut up about Uncle Ben getting shot?"
Yeah, and they allude to the whole Uncle Ben thing with something that Aunt May says, doesn't say.
Yeah, there's a lot of inference there. With a lot of very good physical acting. It's it's a very quick sort of blink you'll miss it. They lost someone dear. Let's move on. We've hinted at it. We got that. And everybody, like I said, everybody and their dog knows at this point, Uncle Ben gets shot and Spider-Man wants to be a good person. Great power, great responsibility. No need to hash that out.
And the thing is, you said, people would get mad about Peter trying to impress Tony. It makes sense because within the movie they show that it's become so normal since the 8 years that the MCU started. They actually kind of use a real time kind of deal with it, which is kind of cool. That Peter was a really young kid when all the Avengers stuff happened and when Iron Man stuff happened. So it would make sense that once he got these powers,
I want to join these guys. I want to save the world. I want to do so much more because I could do so much more.
Yeah, like I fought Captain America. I fought with Iron Man. Yeah, I fought a giant ant guy. I mean, yeah, it's something that normally and it's kind of weird to say with a superhero movie, but normally, yeah, any kid or any adult would want to join.
It goes smaller, but it's a movie about being small and wanting to swing outside their weight class, and it fits so well. So there is one other thing I think we do need to talk about, and it is the directing. Yep, get ready for me being a pedantic little crazy person, as usual. The director of this movie was John Watts, who, according to his IMDb page, has a lot of experience in television, particularly filming comedy sequence for the Onion News Network. And I think that's actually why the comedy in this movie works so well. There's a lot of good timing, a lot of quick jokes, a lot of good, shot composition when it comes to dialogue and quips and very good, like some of the better jokes people have said are just these wide-angle static shots of Spider-Man running to or running from something, and they do a good job of that.
Yeah, it really was like the wider shots and the more static shots that worked. But
at the same time, though, I have to say it, John Watts seems to be, his focus is definitely on comedy beats and quick dialogue and good set piece scenes, because the boat set piece in the trailer is truly amazing to see in the movie. Just
oh yeah, that ferry scene that was supposed to be, that was a big piece that they showed in the trailer, and it did no justice because the actual setup, build up, and execution of that ferry
is so well done, but.
Watts, there's so much more to it.
But I think John Watts kind of falls into something of the same problem I think Patty Jenkins had with directing Wonder Woman. He doesn't seem to be able to direct action or chaos all that well, except that with Wonder Woman, they can sort of lean back on Zack Snyder's slow-mo aesthetic, which at least is visually cohesive. John Watts kind of goes to shaky cam, not really shaky cam, but rapid editing that turns visual geographical consistency to mush. Because there's...
Granted, okay, well, I mean, I hate to say this, but yeah, his ability to direct action doesn't really show a strong, ability to do so in this movie. Well, except for that ferry scene, because that was great. But the fight scenes take place at night, which is a cheap way that any director can try to do action, because you don't have to show everything.
You can hide a lot.
Yeah, you can hide plenty. And there was the airborne scene at night.
Yeah,
was honestly the worst fight, because when you have a CGI character like Vulture who has those gigantic wings, the way the camera tries to follow Peter and the Vulture throughout the air was honestly pretty awful.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, and that's really annoying, because that should be the highlight of this movie. It's Peter literally out of his element against a guy that very clearly has him at a disadvantage. That should be scary and intimidating and exciting. And the musical score picks up on that. The dialogue picks up on that. Everything in the movie is screaming, be engaged, this is dangerous, this is exciting. But when it comes to visually being able to keep an eye on Peter, the Vulture, the action, the webbing, everything else, John Watts doesn't really frame it all that well, which is a shame, because the closest thing to a passable sequence is near the very end, where they're on the ground, and even then, it's weird. It's like whenever the movie's on the ground, it's solid in terms of action. But once it gets into the air with the sequence with the Vulture, which should be the crown jewel, it kind of falls apart. But yeah, those are some pretty minor nitpicks. I didn't mind the supporting cast. The supporting cast was good. Ned, Peter's friend slash partner, I guess. You can kind of call him partner in crime. Was a lot of fun. The actress they got to play, Liz Allen, was a lot of fun. Zendaya did pretty well. They had a very good, diverse cast, and I'm fine with that. Marissa Tomei.
I mean, it's New York. It's New York City.
Yeah.
New York City is probably one of the most diverse places in America.
Absolutely. Like seriously.
So,
if you come across anybody that's complaining about social justice, whatever, for this movie, do me a favor. Ask them if they've ever been to New York, even once in their lives. You go to New York City one time, it will slap you in the face with its diversity, and also give you a nice big old piece of pizza.
It's really weird that people are like, oh, they changed all these characters. Like, well, it makes sense because usually when we see these movies, I'm not trying to start a race thing, but it's usually mostly white students, and you might see like maybe one black guy in the back or something. But with this, it's like, every time you look around, even the principal is an Asian veteran, and which is actually a pretty cool small detail that they put in these movies. And it's like, okay, it's not shoehorned in. It's New York City. If it was anything other than a bunch of different races and genders walking around, that'd be pretty weird. But they actually like, no, it's New York City, real world. Here you go. All these kids are around here because, it's high school. What do you expect? But yeah, the supporting cast was great, especially little Miss Rebel that they had, Michelle. She was
played by Zendaya.
Yeah, she was fantastic. Her dry humor was wonderful to the point where she was a great stand-in for Peter when we had her, and not Peter being goofy Peter, but instead we had her just interacting with the other students like Ned and Liz. Like, there's a point, it's like, you're not even supposed to be in detention. Why are you here? Oh, I'm here because I like sketching people in despair. And you see some of her drawings.
It's cute. Honestly, it's cute.
And honestly, I haven't laughed that much at drawing since oh man, what's that movie with you know what? Forget it. I can't remember. Superbad. Since I saw drawings in Superbad, I was like, okay, you know what? This is actually pretty funny.
As I said before, John Watts' strength as a comedy director really shows here because there's a lot of good humor in this movie. Also, there's a pretty big reimagining of Flash Thompson in this movie, and it's amazing. His character is not a football jock, but he's still somehow just as punchably obnoxious.
Would you they turn it from a jock to an upper class rich kid who has an ego for no reason because
he has an ego
I'm rich.
He has an ego because he's an upper class rich guy. Get it right. But
yeah, like he makes fun of Peter, and it does seem like he only targets Peter, and he targets Ned just for being around Peter.
Have you ever dealt with kids, man? They are monsters. But
oh no, yeah, they are. I mean, I hate to say it, but I was kind of one of them in high school, sort of. I got made fun of, but I made fun of others, and I guess that's why people like me. But that was then. This is now. Times have changed.
It's okay. It's okay. At least you can admit you're an asshole. But
I can, yes. But with the new Flash, yeah, he's still a jerk. He's like, geez, man, what has Peter done to you that made you just act this way? And you see that when they become part of the debate club, Peter kind of outdoes him, and it kind of is like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see why Flash is this way, because Peter kind of makes him look like a chump.
All right, so as I said, there's some good stuff in this movie. There's some great stuff in this movie. There is some, and we've mentioned some of the issues we did have in the movie. So, any final thoughts?
The score, just like any Marvel movie, is forgettable, with the exception of that teeny bop music that they kept playing throughout the film.
The licensed music was well placed.
Yeah, I kind of hate that. It's like, man, you guys need licensed track, because it was the same thing with Guardians. The licensed track is what really separated the musical score. But that and the orchestra version of the Spider-Man theme was fantastic. And
yes, that's actually how they opened the movie, and it got me excited.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sad that was the only time we got that, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, good, you didn't overuse it like some people with that stupid electric guitar riff nonsense. But oh god. But the music score is forgettable. You can tell this was a rush product because some of the CGI needed work, especially at the beginning. Some of the directing could probably use a reshoot here and there.
Yeah.
But other than the music, some of the framing and the dodgy CGI, we're talking about like Avengers 2 dodgy CGI.
Yikes.
Yeah. Other than that, no, man, the movie, this is the high school Peter Parker I'm glad we got. Because right now, yeah, this it shows Marvel can still do something cool, even if they don't own the rights to certain characters for cinematic reasons. And it does a better job of setting things up for future movies than Sony has ever done.
Yes, like, I won't say in any capacity, but if some of the returning characters actually do show up for a Sinister Six spinoff, I would totally check it out just for them alone. And
yeah,
I don't say that lightly.
Yeah, some of the hints that they put down for that thing, like somebody with a certain tattoo, that's like, that can't be who I think it is, and it was, changing up certain villains, and hinting at something bigger. So, and since Sony announced to do a Venom movie, luckily, I'm not gonna spoil too much, but luckily they didn't shoehorn Venom in here this time.
They actually,
that's probably gonna be something different.
They did just enough to keep it light, while also doing enough world building to keep things interested later on. Like you said for Wade at the beginning, Marvel basically walked in and basically showed Sony, this is how you set up future movies without bogging everything down. So, my final thoughts. As I said, I love Tom Holland, I love the casting, I love how they handle the villains, I love how they handle the pacing, I love how they handled... There's a lot to love here. And the post-credit sequence might be the best joke ever since, I think, the post-credit scene from Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm not going to tell you how it is. Just be expected to flip the bird towards the big screen, I guess. But
yeah, there's two post-credit scenes. One at the initial credits,
and one at the very, very end.
And second one at the very end.
They seem to be doing that a lot. So yeah, that's a big thing. My only real problem would just have to be some minor pacing issues, and how the action scenes were shot near the end, going into the third act. And these aren't deal breakers, but they do weigh the movie down. And as you said, there are some moments where you could feel the production being rushed, but otherwise, it's got where it counts, I would say. So, Michael, how would you score Spider-Man Homecoming out of 5 stars?
No, it's kind of weird. I know people are probably going to get mad because I gave Wonder Woman a 3, but Spider-Man... Yeah. But Spider-Man Homecoming was fun, interesting, and a great new way to start off a Spider-Man universe by putting him in the MCU and allowing Sony to continue doing their thing. It's easily a 4 for me. Like, Tom Holland is the Peter Parker / Spider-Man that we wanted from both Tobey Maguire and the other guy. I don't really care.
The other guy.
Yeah, the other guy. But he's the best of both worlds. He was the Peter Parker that we wanted with the Sam Raimi movies, and he's the Spider-Man that we wanted from the Amazing Spider-Man movie. So 4 out of 5 for me.
I would have to give it a 3.5 out of 5. As I said, I am a sucker for clean, coherent action and for clean, coherent motivations. And we got those with Michael Keaton as the Vulture. But I feel as if the expedience and how rushed the production is, I felt as if we didn't have to rehash a whole lot of Peter Parker stuff, but I felt as if there could have been a few more scenes that could have possibly reaffirmed what he did more so than just impressing Tony Stark, despite the understandability with the context of the film as it stands. And once again, as strange as it sounds, Spider-Man Homecoming also kind of doubles as a quirky high school comedy as well as a superhero movie, and I think that's where a lot of its charm and a lot of its energy comes from. But if they do make a sequel or do more spin-offs, I think they need to spend a bit more time with action and a bit more time with addressing and showing a bit more of Peter Parker's life outside of the high school and outside of him as a superhero, which I think is where the movie wisely sidesteps, but also to its own detriment. Very nitpicky, but still, this is a good movie, folks.
Yeah, I want them to bring back the same director. I want them to bring it back, but Marvel, unless it's like does super well, like Guardians, which, let's face it, is not going to be Guardians big. But I hope they keep the same director. But with that said, with a Spider-Man 2, whatever they're going to call it, they've already mentioned that Peter's a sophomore in this movie. So It will give him an excuse to put him as a senior in the next one because it's going to be a couple years, and of course Tom Holland is going to get a little older. He's already a grown man, but he's going to get a little older, and some of the cast might actually change up a little bit. So I can see that. I can see that big time skip, especially after Infinity War happens.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be. Oh boy, he's gonna be in Infinity War. That's gonna be a big deal. Whew. But yeah, those are our thoughts on Spider-Man: Homecoming. Michael, would you care to tell the lovely people where we can follow you?
Please don't follow me. I don't like stalkers. Oh wait, you meant on social media? Absolutely.
Follow him.
I'll get you next time, Gadget. You can follow me on. Next time. You can follow me on Twitter at M_MOSLEY_JR. And if for some strange reason you can't find me that way, you can find me on my Twitter handle of ZaphMod. And of course, I stream on Mixer with the same name, ZaphMod, and also stream on Twitch with ZaphMod1. Darth Rahu, where can we find you, my friend?
You can follow me on Twitter at Darth Rahu, capital D, capital R, all one word. You can also read my thoughts in a more professional capacity, both at my blog at cybertavern.blogspot.com and as a game critic at thegamefanatics.com, of which I am the reviews editor, Pat. I also stream as well on my own Twitch channel of DigiDesperado26, and this week is the continuation of my Pile of Shame stream of Nier Automata. So check that out if you guys haven't already. And I think that'll be it for us, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.
Before you all forget, we now have a website. We
do officially have a website.
Yep, so you can find that link in the description below. You can download and listen to all 21, now 22 episodes of That Random Podcast. If at your pleasure, we're trying to get on iTunes right now, probably other stuff. But you can go ahead, stream that for free, download that for free. And if for some strange reason you do feel like giving us money, we also have a Patreon.
Yes, we do. Give us money. We'll use it properly, we promise.
We'll use it to go watch more Marvel movies.
Whee!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Take care, everybody.